You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. And Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. And Sean, it's been an interesting week for the Green Bay Packers. Mixed feelings about what's been going down. How you doing?
Mixed feelings a bit, and fans who are going to be going to Packer training camp this summer or Packer games later this fall. Well, hopefully you can rely on our sponsor, Ticket King, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. That's what our show is sponsored by. For more than 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit the locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support local Wisconsin businesses, and also you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network with Gil and myself on YouTube. Click on the bell, turn the notifications on. You can join the discussion and chat with us live. We'd love to see and talk about the comments coming our way. And yeah, Gil, I mean, the big thing, obviously, where, you know, this episode, we were thinking like, okay, coming into the week, we're going to rank the top 15 defensive players because we're kind of in the slow part. We're in the purgatory part of really the NFL offseason. It's all about resting up, gearing up for training camp. But we got to start this show, though, with talking about Jaire Alexander, where he was released last week. We talked about that, where obviously him and the Packers essentially were at odds, you know, with Jaire's injury concerns and all the money that the Packers have been paying him to play when he has been playing. Well, he just signed with the Baltimore Ravens this week, and the deal was only for 1 year and $4 million, and with incentives and everything, it could be worth up to $6 million. It feels so similar to Aaron Jones last year, where it's like, how can you not afford a small deal like this? Really, it's a guy who's we think is worth that it's pennies on the dollar for what they're worth. So Jaire Alexander going to Baltimore essentially on a discount. Reportedly, he had greater offers beyond that, but he's reunited with his former college teammate Lamar Jackson down there, and in a good situation for Jaire. But I got to ask you this, Gil, the Packers, they didn't draft a corner. They signed a corner in free agency, but they didn't draft a corner with a premium pick in the draft in April. Did the Packers screw this up?
I think they could have in some ways. I don't think they did all the way. I think some of the public comments may have been where they screwed up more than anything. I don't object to the money or the way they structured the money, but when you publicly call out a player like that, that makes it much less likely that he's willing to take the pay cut or the restructuring in order to stay. I think Jaire Alexander could have had more money, assuming he stayed relatively healthy, if he would have signed the incentive-laden deal with the Packers.
Mm-hmm. But
after those public comments where they more or less basically questioned his toughness to the media, to the fans, I think at that point, doing that and then asking him to take the pay cut, that kind of closed the door behind him in my mind.
And it's interesting because you know where no one's the contract details came out for Baltimore, but we're only going to hear of rumors of what the Packers actually offer Jaire Alexander. We're never going to hear that. We never do hear the official offer, but right. Jaire's dad has been very public on local radio shows here in Wisconsin, on Twitter, on the X Machine. His name is, I believe his name is Earl Alexander. He's recognized as Landis Alexander on Twitter and X. And he said, according to him, that the Packers didn't offer his son any base salary, which that can't be true because every player under contract has some base salary. I mean, minimum base salary for an NFL player with a minimum of 7 years playing experience like Jaire is $1.26 million. So, yeah, a base salary had to be offered, but he said that Jaire wanted to stay in Green Bay, but he was insulted by the incentive-heavy deal offered him. Said he was offered $4.3 million incentive-based deal with more game incentives to take him to $6 million. And he did go on to say, though, that, you know, that him and Jaire, they understand that in reference to the Packers already paying him a lot of guaranteed money to only play half the games the past 4 years, and said they aren't really mad at the Packers. They get it. It's a business, but it's very interesting where, again, we don't know what the deal is. We're just taking from what his dad said. I mean, Jaire Alexander, we may hear on a future podcast one day what really happened between Jaire and the Packers, but I feel like his dad is spilling all the tea, and we're going to get more details sooner rather than later if we just keep listening to him.
Yeah, assuming he keeps spilling the tea. So we'll have to see how much longer he's going out there and making statements. But look, the two ways that I think the Packers might have made mistakes here. Number one, as I said, the public calling out of Jaire Alexander. And then number two, not drafting or acquiring, I mean, another corner. Is Nate Hobbs enough? Is there enough depth at this position? To me, that right now is the big question, because look, the top 3 or 4 corners on this roster are solid. There are no positions on this Packers roster right now that are the equivalent of safety a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
They had to redo the whole room. There was nobody like on the roster who you could trust to start, and they needed to go bring in people right away. There was nothing like that. But clearly, there are more questions at cornerback. There's no elite cornerback on this roster. There are some good ones, but there's no elite players. Jaire was the only one they had, and there's not a lot of depth. So I would have either acquired another or drafted another corner sooner than the 7th round, but that ship has sailed.
It has, and the Packers have to move on. And I'll say this too, where it's like, I think Jaire, I believe his dad that Jaire wanted to be back in Green Bay, but I also do believe that Jaire wasn't as salty as maybe people may think, because if he was super salty, he would have pulled a Zadarius Smith or a Greg Jennings and gone to Minnesota, or he would have gone to maybe an NFC North team at least. But he's going to a different conference where he's going to be in a great situation with a great winning organization and just a great. There's just great structure there in Baltimore. It's a good fit for him, and a place where I could see him being long term if he does get back to his old ways and he stays on the field. But that's a big if, obviously. Right. But I mean, with this, though, the Packers, they clearly had a number for Jaire that they were only willing to offer him. And this is like Aaron Jones last year, where they offered him a certain amount of money. They didn't want to budge on that. And it goes to show it's such a cold and calculated business, and they only have so much money planned for so many guys. And depending on how much you play and everything, and the Packers have a lot of contract extensions that they're probably going to work out coming up in the next few months or so before next March rolls around, before the next free agency period rolls around next offseason. And this is just part of the equation. It's cold and calculated, but that's the way of the NFL. That's how it works.
It's a business. And, one thing of note, the Packers elected to take all of the dead cap hit this year, according to numerous reports. So they need that money for 2026. You mentioned a lot of players who need new contracts and extensions. So I think that cap-wise, this was more of a move for next year than it was for this year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I'm just thinking where it's like there's 3 guys who started the O-line last year are going into contract years. You got a guy in Quay Walker who's entering free agency a year earlier than his rookie deal allows, essentially. And there's just a lot of stuff that you got to figure out going forward. And that's the job of Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball, obviously. And Speaking of Brian Gutekunst, speaking of Russ Ball, incoming Packers president Ed Policy, who's taking over for Mark Murphy, who has to retire next month, spoke to reporters on Tuesday. And something that stood out, Gil, was that he said he's not quite ready to offer Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst contract extensions going into this upcoming season. Now, they both have 2 years left on their current deals, so it's not urgent right now. It's going to be urgent this time probably next year.
Right.
But said he doesn't generally believe in an NFL head coach and GM to work into the last years of their contract without a new deal. Now, Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, Director of Football Operations, Russ Ball, they'll continue to report to Ed Policy. It's a structure that's set up by Mark Murphy before the 2018 season. LaFleur's entering his 7th year as head coach. Gutekunst entering his 8th year as general manager of the Packers. Let me ask you this, Gil, with the new president taking over in a short time from now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe are the jobs of Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst?
So 10 means completely safe.
10 means completely safe. Yeah, I should have just jumped. I should have said that. And 1 means that they're gone if they
Tomorrow,
make one more bad decision.
Right. I would say for this season, it's probably like an 8 as far as safety goes. But if this season doesn't go well, that changes the entire equation. If the Packers go 6-11 this year, that 8 can go down to like a 2 or a 3 in a real hurry.
And you're saying 8 for LaFleur and Gutekunst.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's an 8 for Matt LaFleur. Just because his ability to adapt the different kinds of teams and players he's had to manage and coach, 2 different kind of quarterbacks he's had to manage and coach. He's really top tier in comparison to many NFL head coaches. But the thing is, he needs to get the Packers to a Super Bowl sooner rather than later. He's had the benefit of being like, hey, we've been the youngest team in the NFL the last 2 years, 2 of the youngest teams to ever make the NFL playoffs in NFL history. He's been super successful, 5 playoff appearances in his 6 seasons, and he has 5 winning seasons in those 6 years. I give him an 8. But Brian Gutekunst, I'd say it's a 7 right now. And that number, though, is so dependent on Jordan Love's play as his career moves along. If he takes a big step forward, if he's in MVP talks, if he's taking the Packers to the NFC Championship game, Brian Gutekunst is going to be in really good shape. But the Packers also, they're 73-42-1 since Brian Gutekunst took over as GM in 2018. And that's the 4th best win percentage overall in the NFL. Brian Gutekunst has done a great job building this team. So I would say a 7 for Brian Gutekunst though right now, but it's very, very dependent on Jordan Love's progress and development going forward.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, you now lost Jaire Alexander. That's the last player from the 2018 draft, which was his first. Lucas Van Ness, this is a critical season for him to see if he pans out. So, between Love and Van Ness and a number of other moves that he's made, some of those, he's done better in day 3 of the draft than he did in the first round, if you're grading him. And I think those first round disappointments would add up if a Lucas Van Ness and a Jordan Love do not take a step forward this year.
His ability to find offensive linemen at any point in the draft is outstanding too.
Yeah.
And just his ability to build offensive lines that's a reason alone where it's like, okay, if like he stays as the GM for a long time, as long as the O-line's still good, I'm cool with that. It's crazy. It's like the 3 guys who are entering contract years, and Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, and Sean Ryan were all day 3 picks in the same draft. And they are all like, you can make a case for why they are all worthy of contract extensions and lucrative contract extensions coming up. It's just, that says a lot about Brian Gutekunst and his eye for finding good offensive linemen. And obviously he learned from Ron Wolf, he learned from Ted Thompson, and he's kind of stuck to that. And it's the Packers are a consistent winner. Brian Gutekunst is a big part of it, and Matt LaFleur is too.
No doubt. And so you gotta see where we go from there. And I think his job will be more or less safe. I don't anticipate there being major problems here, but again, you never know. That's why they play the games.
It helps that Ed Policy has essentially been being groomed for the job for probably, like, even though it was kind of, he's been a shoo-in essentially, it seems like the last 4 to 5 years to take over as Packers president. He knows, obviously, he knows Matt LaFleur. He knows Russ Ball. He knows Brian Gutekunst. And it's very helpful to know that Ed Policy is not some outsider who's coming in and he's going to make a bunch of changes. It's probably going to be pretty status quo for the most part, but I think the Packers definitely as an organization on the football field, they got to take another step forward in order to increase that job security for both the head coach and the GM. Now, let's get to what we wanted to do, what the plan was initially until these matters came up. And we're going to rank our top 15 defensive Packers as of today. Obviously, Jaire Alexander would have been on this list, but he's no longer Green Bay Packers. So he's not on this list. We're going to go from 15 to 1, 15 being middle, not the worst player, but, essentially, and number 1 being the best player, just to get that clarified ahead of time. So, Gil, let's start with you. Number 15 on your list.
Number 15, I went with Brenton Cox Jr. I don't know for sure how big his role is going to be, but I think he has the potential to take a little step forward and make more of an impact. He certainly finished the season strong, had 4 sacks in the last 7 games of the year, got his share of pressures. The talent is there, even though he was an undrafted free agent. He had day 1 or day 2 talent. According to most scouts, it was the off-the-field stuff that caused him to slip, and he hasn't, as far as we know, had any off-the-field issues since he came to Green Bay. So I put Brenton Cox in 15. How about you?
I was very close to putting Brenton Cox in my top 15, but he's honorable mention for me. I mean, you mentioned 4 sacks in only 7 games. He essentially took a redshirt year his rookie year, and he's a guy where it's like, the Packers haven't invested anything to add from the outside on this defensive line and in the edge group. They're counting on Brenton Cox for sure, you would have to think. But I went with another edge guy. I went with Kingsley Enagbare at 15th overall. He's a guy he's a solid rotational piece. He had a career best 4.5 sacks last year, 8 QB hits, 2 forced fumbles on 47% of the snaps in games that he played in. Just a solid rotational piece, but I put him at number 15. Number 14 for you, Gil.
I went with Isaiah McDuffie at 14. Don't know if he's going to start this year. I know he started last year. I would say that he's the favorite to be the starter, but you don't know whether Tyron Hopper could pass him or even Isaiah Simmons. So that's sort of up in the air, but he's a veteran. He's a leader. He's a very smart football player, defends the run well. And I think even if he doesn't start, he will see the field more often than maybe your typical backup linebacker will.
Isaiah McDuffie was a nice story last year. He was and I believe he was in the same draft class as Jordan Love too, but he's a guy, he just signed an extension this past offseason after he had a career best 97 total tackles and had a few QB hits, few tackles for loss. He started every game last year. Just a valuable, at worst, you get a valuable rotational piece at linebacker. Yes. And he's not going to be on the field 100% of the time. That's not going to be his job. That's not going to be his forte. But you know what? If you need a guy to plug in there, you can count on him. So I had him a little higher on my list. You'll see in just a bit. 14 on my list is defensive end Lucas Van Ness. And he dropped a little bit from last year when we did this. And Van Ness is entering a pivotal 3rd year. He turns 24 in July, so he's still a super young guy. But his play dipped last year from his rookie season. Only 3 sacks a year ago. He has 14 tackles for loss and 16 quarterback hits in his 2 years and 7 total sacks. Just a guy who needs to improve dramatically for him to move up this list, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had him a little bit higher than this, but I'm kind of in a similar thought process as to where he's at.
And Gil, let's go on number 13. Guy who already appeared on my list. Who's number 13 on your list?
Yeah, well, we're not that far off here, as we usually are not. But 13, Kingsley Enagbare. He did start last year after they traded Preston Smith, but Lucas Van Ness was lining up with the ones at OTAs. And again, OTAs, no pads. You take everything with a grain of salt, but it kind of indicates to me that the coaching staff would like Lucas Van Ness to win that starting job. So Enagbare to me just dropped a little bit lower than where you may have had him, but that's where I put him, 13.
Yeah, it was debatable for me where I put Enagbare and Van Ness in comparison to each other. I think Van Ness just has a slight edge over him, but yeah, the Packers want the 1st-round picks to win those jobs. They're going to have the edge, but if a guy like Kingsley Enagbare, who has gotten better, I feel like every year he's been in the league, if he just outplays Lucas Van Ness, guess what? It's the NFL, man. You're going to play. If you're better, you are going to play.
Yes.
13 on my list is linebacker Isaiah McDuffie, just ahead of you. Just a reliable guy, a guy you can count on, a guy you don't want to build your defense around, but a guy you could certainly count on to get the job done if need be. Number 12 on your list, Gil.
Carrington Valentine. And again, don't know if he'll start. Don't know how much playing time he's going to get. But has he come a long way from being a 7th-round draft choice a couple of years back. I like his physicality. I like his potential. the question, I think this year we're going to find out whether or not he's a starting caliber player or a depth guy, and how he performs in training camp and in the preseason will go a long way to determining that.
Yeah, Valentine, I like Carrington Valentine. I like his length at corner. It reminds me of Sam Shields in a way, but I think he's actually, I think, a little more physical, especially in coverage than Sam Shields, but he can't really tackle, and Sam Shields couldn't tackle either, just because they're more wiry. They're not the biggest corners, but Carrington Valentine, I mean, you mentioned him where he's entering his third year. He has 19 starts in his first 2 NFL seasons. That's outstanding for a 7th round pick. 2 interceptions, 5 pass deflections, and 2 forced fumbles last year. And he played only in 57% of the snaps in the games that he played in. So a guy who I feel like the one of the outside corner jobs is his to lose right now going into training camp. Number 12 on my list is safety Javon Bullard. And Bullard is a guy who it's kind of weird where you drafted him in the 2nd round and in 2024, you'd think, oh, he's going to start next to Xavier McKinney. But then it's like, no, maybe he's better off in the slot close to the line of scrimmage, but he struggles in coverage. But he's a willing tackler. He's a physical safety, which I think there's a lot to like about him. But his coverage skills aren't great, and that's a problem. And I feel like, though, the physicality he brings to that safety group is very nice, where he could be a very versatile role, but he's got to get better in pass coverage for him to move up that list.
Yeah, I had him next at 11, so I'm right with you with that. And you know, I would have had him higher, except as you kind of alluded to, he's a man without a position right now. Yeah. Does he start at safety, or does Evan Williams start at safety? Does he start in the slot, or is Nate Hobbs going to be the slot guy predominantly? There is a possibility that Javon Bullard doesn't have a defined role as the season starts. Now, if injuries strike, he could fill in a lot of different places. But I was hoping to put him higher on this list, but I couldn't as of yet.
It's crazy because you felt like it wasn't really fair his rookie year, where he played 81% of the snaps in the games that he played in. So he was on the field a lot, but he was switching time in the slot and then playing safety. And he was learning essentially so many different positions out of necessity. And that's hard for an NFL veteran. That's incredibly hard for a rookie, for a guy who is literally in his first season, and he's being asked to learn one position, be like, okay, we got to move you here because of injury. And so I feel like that was such an uphill battle, and he handled it very well for the most part. And maybe just that rookie year, getting that past him and behind him is going to help him moving forward. But he's an interesting case, though, where it's like, I think he's a good player, but yeah, it's a numbers game, and it could be a problem moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. Going to be interesting to see how it plays out in training camp. Where did you go for 11?
For 11, and this is a guy I was surprised that wasn't on your list at all, Gil. I had defensive tackle Carl Brooks at 11. And I don't know. I'm a big Carl Brooks guy. He's entering his 3rd year. He was a former 6th round pick, a guy who's undersized, a little older, but he is just the guy is just a ball player, man. 7.5 sacks in 2 years, 10 tackles for loss, 11 quarterback hits, had 3.5 sacks and 4 tackles for loss and 6 QB hits last year while playing 41% of the defensive snaps. And what I love about him is this guy is totally bought in. He is always hustling to the football. He's always there he's rallying to the football all the time, where there are countless times last year where I feel like he had, a couple fumble recoveries last year. And if he doesn't hustle to the football, the Packers don't create a turnover. And that's just, I feel like he's obviously a guy who was coached very well from high school and college. And he's buying into what the coaches are preaching, what Jeff Hafley's preaching at the NFL level. And he's a guy who I feel like is just going to have a steady role as a rotational defensive tackle in the NFL, because he just does his job and he does it well.
I am a big Carl Brooks fan. I love the way he plays the game. Like you said, he's around the ball. He hustles, but he is a role player. And that's why he narrowly missed my list. We don't know who's going to be on the nose this year. If it's Kenny Clark, and then you have Devontae Wyatt. Brooks is going to play 30% of the snaps, 35% of the snaps. So he just missed making the list for me, but I am a big Carl Brooks fan.
Who's number 10 on your list? I already mentioned him, so you can reveal it.
Lucas Van Ness coming in at 10. And again, the thought process for me was because he lined up with the ones at OTAs, that he's more likely to be the starter opposite Rashawn Gary. So I put him here at 10. It assumes he does at least take some kind of a step forward this year, but I anticipate that he will be the starter. And look, edge rusher, defensive end is an impact position. I had to put him somewhere on this list.
If he takes a jump in year 3, like Rashawn Gary took from years 2 to 3, Van Ness is going to be in the top 5 on this list,
yes,
in my opinion.
The potential is there.
It is, but it's like you got to hit that potential eventually. It's such a pivotal season for him, and if he grows, this Packers defense is so much better if he does grow. And number 10 on my list was Carrington Valentine. We already talked about him. I'm very high in Carrington Valentine, and I just don't put him in a situation where he's got to make a tackle on the outside, or he's got to tackle a big tight end like Dallas Goedert and get essentially driven to the end zone from 30 yards out, like in the playoffs last year. Just don't put him in that situation.
Yeah.
Number 9 on your list, Gil. 9 through 7 right now. It's pretty interchangeable. So this is very interesting the way our brains work. It's pretty close, but let's start with you though. Number 9 on your list.
Number 9, I went with Evan Williams, and big fan of his. I think he surprised a lot of people as a rookie by winning a starting job.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the question is, does he start? What is his role going to be? I think if he does win that starting job again, opposite Xavier McKinney, he's an impact player potentially. I would love to see him take another step forward in year 2. I'm high on his potential, but I couldn't rank him higher because the role is just a little uncertain.
I just felt like I ranked him a little higher just because I feel like he was easily the best safety to line up alongside Xavier McKinney in the deep secondary. And he's just so smart. He's a bright kid. And I think he's very talented. He's a willing tackler. He's solid enough in coverage to get the job done. I think he makes a very good duo with Xavier McKinney. 9 on my list was linebacker Quay Walker, a guy who he's had at least 100+ tackles in each of his first 3 NFL seasons. Former first-round pick, did not get that 5th-year option picked up so he's going into a contract year. The Packers, though, are very high on him, pairing him up with Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker. 102 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits last year. Played 89% of the snaps in the games that he played. In the games that he played in. A guy that I think has gotten better, but he tends to just kind of be a knucklehead at times too, where it's like he just seems to get lost in the weeds at times, and that's got to be limited. It's time for him to show that he's learned from his past mistakes, and he's no longer a young player. And now he's a grizzled vet. He's got to turn the page now.
You know, the key with Quay Walker for me is he played better down the stretch. Maybe there was a 3 or 4 game period where he took his game to a higher level. And the question that he has to answer is that just a hot streak, or is that the new normal for Quay Walker? If it was a hot streak, he's not moving up on this list much higher. If it's the new normal, I mean, think about the potential speed you have at linebacker based on this roster. Now, in an interview on Cheesehead TV with Aaron Nagler, Brian Gutekunst indicated they were looking to re-sign Quay Walker to an extension. So got to mention that, and think that he hopefully will be a part of this team beyond 2025. He's on my list a little higher, but again, we're in the ballpark.
Hey, the best NFL defenses have 2 guys who can play off each other in the middle of the defense at linebacker. You saw it with Tampa when they had Levante David and Devin White. You've seen it in San Francisco when they had Dre Greenlaw with Fred Warner. Those defenses, man, you got 2 guys who know how to play off of each other and with each other. You could potentially have that with Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper. Number 8 on your list, Gil.
Went with Nate Hobbs. I think whether he starts on the boundary or starts in the slot, he's going to have a role. They didn't sign him to that large contract to have him sit. And I think the team is counting on him to produce, especially after Jaire Alexander departs for Baltimore. So cornerback is an elite position. an impact position. I couldn't put him too much lower if he's going to have a major role in that position.
Yeah, Nate Hobbs is a guy who it's like you pay him money, good money for a reason on the open market. You expect big things. So I like the physical nature that he plays with on the line of scrimmage. I do like him as I think he's going to be a solid addition for this Packers defense. Number 8 on my list, we just talked about him, was safety Evan Williams. And number 7 on my list, I'm going to just go right to it, Gil, is Nate Hobbs, a guy who, so it's like just right in there. And then number 7 on your list, if you want to reveal it real quick,
is Quay Walker. So we're shuffling 7, 8, and 9, but we're in the same ballpark.
All right, number 6 on your list, Gil. Let's get right to it.
All right, moving right along to number 6, Devonte Wyatt.
Yeah, I like Devonte Wyatt. I think I like him a little more than you do. A guy who I think is an ascending player. He was a bit of an older first-round pick than typically what the Packers draft. He's already, I believe, 27 years old, but he got that fifth-year option picked up. You got to think that, obviously, Brian Gutekunst has been vocal how he wants to extend Devonte Wyatt as well, and this is just essentially buying extra time. And who knows, it's Devonte Wyatt probably hoping for a breakout year, and then he could cash in pretty big after this season coming up. So Devonte Wyatt is a little higher on my list. I had number 6 on my list, quarterback Keyshawn Nixon, a guy who really just, like Mark Murphy said after he was at a charity golf outing and the media got to talk to him a little bit, said Keyshawn Nixon, just an outstanding story, an undrafted guy who he's entering his 7th NFL season, his 4th with Green Bay, had 15 starts last year, corner, 7 pass deflections, 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits, played 94% of the defensive snaps. A guy who looks like he's going to be locked in as one of the outside corners for the Packers, and a guy hopefully who just continues to grow as a player. And maybe the Packers have a gem there that we didn't expect.
Yeah, I think that is very possible. He really did a great job when he had to move to the boundary, which he hadn't played extensively before. I was pleasantly surprised with his play. And, to me, the only key is you got to make sure it wasn't just a one-year thing. He's got to prove it that this is what he's capable of doing. And I think he may even be capable of being a little bit better, but I need to see it.
Yeah, he's a guy who's a willing tackler, too, on the outside.
Yes,
That's what I like about him. He's willing to get physical and down and dirty, man. I like that. I like when you got a cornerback with a little bit of little chippiness, It's like a guy who's not afraid to stick his nose in there. Number 5 on your list, Gil.
Number 5, I go with linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, and I think he could be much higher on this list. Well, there's not that much higher you could go, but I think he could be higher on this list by the end of the season. I think he has Pro Bowl potential, and he may even be able to realize it this year, but we haven't seen it yet. He only played, a little less than 40% of the defensive snaps last year?
55%.
All right, in the games that he played.
Correct.
So, he didn't start a lot of games yet. I feel like the coaching staff was like, he's making all these plays, but he doesn't really know where to go necessarily yet. He's not fully in tune with the strategy and the way that the defense works and all of his reads. He is so talented. He is so fast. And I think he will develop into a great player, but I need to see him do it before I can put him higher. I think 5 is a pretty high spot. I'm sure you have him higher than that.
I do. I love Edgerrin Cooper because of what he was able to do in the limited time that he played. Where
Absolutely.
Obviously he was very much learning on the fly last year. That's what it seemed like. But I'm telling you, barring any injury, knock on wood, he is not leaving the field this year. He's just not. The guy was just unbelievable. He had 13 tackles for loss to lead the Packers last year, 7 quarterback hits. He had 3.5 sacks. And again, only playing 55% of the defensive snaps in the 14 games they played. This guy's a budding superstar. I
agree.
He's so good. It's just a matter of just honing it in. So I understand where you have him ranked, Gil, for sure. But I just think even with the limited time he played last year and how green he was, he was so impressive. He was so dazzling to me. 5 on my list was defensive tackle Kenny Clark. He would have been a little higher, but just had a disappointing year last year. He probably his worst season statistically since his rookie season. And He's just a little bit further down the list. And I know, Gil, I'm going to spoil it right away. He's number 4 on your list. So we'll just go right into Kenny Clark with number 4.
Yeah. And look, here is a 3-time Pro Bowler. You find out after the season how bad the toe was and how it affected him. Fingers crossed that it was more the toe than the fact that he's got a lot of wear on the tires and is, played a lot of seasons in this league. He's 30 now. So, you don't want him to slow down. If they get 80%, 85% of what Kenny Clark was 2 years ago, this defensive line can be that much better.
Yeah, I don't want to go overseas again. I just don't. We seem to have critical injuries to like the quarterbacks especially, but to other players too whenever we play on foreign soil.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I know there's Packer fans worldwide, and I apologize for that, but it's like, man, it just hasn't been good for the Packers. And number 4 on my list, Gil, just ahead of Kenny Clark, was Devontae White. I think he was their best defensive tackle last year, and a guy who's going to get a lot more run, who should get a lot more run, just because he's so slippery, he's so quick. And I think he's just gotten better and better since he's been in the league. And a guy who, obviously, this is why the Packers want to keep him around long term, because he's a very talented player, and it looks like he's only going to grow. We're just going to raise a head, Gil, just because we're getting a little long on time today. But number 3 on your list was Keyshawn Nixon, a little higher than me, where I had him at number 6. Number 3 on my list, I was a little more bullish on him than you were, Gil. That's Edgerrin Cooper at number 3. And then number 2 and number 1, we both agreed on. So number 2, reveal it for us, Gil.
Number 2, Rashawn Gary. And he needs to step up this year. He has never reached double-digit sacks yet in his career. He had 9.5, but never 10. Then he got hurt. Now he has a second year in Jeff Hafley's system. I want to see the double-digit sacks this year.
The double-digit sacks will happen. It'll only happen if they have a legit presence on the other side of the defensive line. That's pretty much it. It's all Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbari, because I'm going to give Rashawn Gary a little bit of slack from last year because he played the run so much better than he ever has in his career. He's totally bought into the scheme, even though it took away from possible big sack numbers, like just playing your gap and being disciplined and stopping the run and limiting the run. Essentially, he was a very good run defender last year, but I think a lot of teams definitely slid their protections towards him to make sure that he didn't have prime opportunities to take over games like he has so many times in the past at times throughout his career. So I think he's a firm number 2 on my list as well.
And number 1?
You want to reveal it?
Your turn. I've been revealing them all. You go ahead.
I mean, it's obvious for those watching with us. It's safety Xavier McKinney. An absolute no-brainer. His first season with Green Bay, you couldn't have played any better. He played in every game last year. 88 total tackles, 8 interceptions, 11 pass deflections. He was a first-team All-Pro, a Pro Bowler. Easily the best safety the Packers have had since Nick Collins. Maybe the best defensive player they've had since Charles Woodson or Clay Matthews. Just an incredible addition to this Packers defense, and a guy who it's just really the ultimate security, the true definition of a security blanket on the back end of the defense.
Hey, when you have opposing coaches and quarterbacks saying, we don't want to throw to this guy. I mean, how many shutdown safeties are there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so he is impacting games even when he's not making plays himself. And that is the definition of a star.
Teams didn't go deep on the Packers down the middle of the field because of Xavier McKinney. That was Nick Collins.
Yep.
We got that with Xavier McKinney. Let's hope it also produces a Super Bowl like Nick Collins got with the Packers during his too short of a career in Green Bay. Yep. Gil, let's wrap up real quick with some articles coming up on Packers Post at Cheesehead TV. Let us know what's going on.
Well, for the Packers Post, the NFL came out with their quarter century team. Packers got, I think, a few Packers got omitted from that team. But what I did was I did a Packers quarter century team, both offense and defense. The offense went up on Thursday. The defense will go up on Friday. And on Cheesehead TV, kind of similar to what we're talking about now, I asked the question, do the Packers have enough impact players to be a Super Bowl contender? There's no gaping holes in this lineup. There's no weaknesses that you look at this team and say, oh, they have to cover up for this. It's so terrible. But are there enough stars, enough impact players to win a championship?
time for a bunch of young players to take a huge step forward. That's what it boils down to. Easier said than done, but that's what it boils down to.
Yes.
Gil, you ready for some trivia?
I am ready for the trivia.
All right. Well, we've all heard the latest news with Jaire Alexander. We talked about it earlier in this episode. He's heading to the AFC. He's reuniting with former college teammate Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, pending health, Jaire will likely start at least one game for the Ravens this upcoming season. Gil, who was the last Packers defensive starter to leave the Packers and start at least one game for the Baltimore Ravens the next season?
Zadarius Smith.
No, because Zadarius was there before. He was there before.
Right.
It was in this millennium.
Okay.
Defensive, and he was a defensive player.
Right.
I'll be very impressed if you get this, because this is deep research on my part.
Yeah, no, I'm not coming up with this one.
It was a middle linebacker by the name of Bernardo Harris.
I remember Bernardo Harris.
Oh, yeah, I do. Oh, absolutely. I do too. I just wanted to lead into it. So he started middle linebacker for the Packers for 5 consecutive seasons and spent his first 7 NFL years playing in Green Bay. He left the Packers after the 2001 season and joined the Ravens in 2002. In 2002, Harris started in 10 games for Baltimore. He registered 77 total tackles. That was his lowest total since his second NFL season. A couple interceptions, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. In 2002 was his lone season in Baltimore, and it marked his final season in the NFL. Now, I thought, Gil, you would guess like Tramon Williams.
Right.
Because Tramon Williams, after his second stint in Green Bay, he joined the Baltimore Ravens after that, but he actually never started a game officially for the Baltimore Ravens. So I was hoping to throw you a curveball there, but Zadarius, Zadarius is the first guy that came to mind where it's like with Baltimore and Green Bay, but he never
it's the opposite order.
Yeah. He didn't go back to Baltimore after Green Bay. He went to a different purple team
the other purple team. That will not be named.
Thou shall not be named, but you guys can connect the dots. You get it. So yeah,
that's it. They'll be named if they ever win a Super Bowl. Okay.
If they ever get in the exclusive club,
There you go. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Gil Packers and at GB Packers Sean to stay up to date on all things Packers or to ask us questions. Or you could email us at gbpackersean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go!
Go Pack Go!